You may recognize Adam from the local Ohio Fire Department or his transformation on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 9. Thank you for joining today, Adam. Welcome to TURTZED.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do the show.
For those of you who don't know, the episode of Drag Race that Adam was on has the queens compete by doing a makeover of someone who's never done drag before. He was transformed into Valerie Valentine by none other than Vanessa, Vanjie, Mateo, and Roxy Andrews. So my first question is, Adam, you'd never done drag before. How did you decide to submit yourself to the show?
So that's correct. I have never done drag before, but a friend of mine that actually lives out in LA reached out to me, sent me the application and said, hey, not sure if you'd be interested in this, but here you go. I instantly, honestly, I was like, let's do it. I think my thing is with life in general, to be able to experience things from other people's perspectives is important, just to understand how people are. I am a Toledo firefighter, as you mentioned. That aspect of it to me was another important reason to do it, because everyone, has opinions about certain things, and you have discussions at the fire station about certain things. And so I wanted to open up those conversations more. So that was a big reason that I decided to do the show. Along with my daughter is pansexual and my son-in-law is a trans male. So that was very important to me. I've accepted them from the beginning. I've never had any problems with them and I love them both. So it was important for me to, on another level, show my acceptance.
You put yourself into shoes that you hadn't worn before and did something that was different and something that is not necessarily something you would have done otherwise. But I think it gives you a good idea of being able to put on all of the makeup, the wigs, the whole outfit, and have that experience of what a person goes through who is doing drag, which is part of that community.
Exactly. And I think that was part of it, is that, I did binge watch the show a little bit, because I haven't watched it. I mean, I definitely knew who RuPaul was and I've known RuPaul over the years, but I binge watched the show. So Vanessa, Vanjie, Mateo, it's hilarious. So I wanted to be a part of their team, So when we got to do and get the choice to be on those teams, I was happy I was first, because I got to choose who I kind of wanted. So it was a great experience the whole time. Just the fun, the conversations we had, opening up those conversations, understanding again how they got to where they are in life, as drag performers. And, that was a big thing to me too, was like, this is something that drag queens do. It's kind of a different persona. It lets them be someone that they're not. And I did tell them that a lot of people, I think, do look up to them as well. You know what I mean? Because they're able to, this is a big thing for me, being unapologetically you, right? So someone can be who they are and not worry about other things. Of course, you're going to worry about them. Of course, you're going to have these thoughts and wonder what people think or whatever. But to be unapologetically you, and just to be able to do that and be confident in who they are, is huge. I mean, it's huge for so many people to see that. So it was important for me to do the show and just have fun with it. Get outside of my, Grand Rapids, Ohio, 900 people, town, and just to do it, because I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to experience something different in life and just do it.
I love that. I want to take a step back for a second and just talk about your daughter, if that's okay. When she came out, what was that like for you as a father?
So I was raised a Jehovah's Witness personally. So we always had the teachings that homosexuality was wrong. But when I was growing up, it never bothered me. I never wanted it to bother me. I never understood how it was such a bad thing that two people would love each other. There's so many other bad things in life that could happen and you'd be okay with it just because they're heterosexual couples. But the fact that they're not, it's like people have a problem with it. I never have. I always thought love was love. And if you're happy, I'm happy. So going into that, Calista actually had a boyfriend when she was younger. Didn't really think much of it. It was the normal, life of, you picture your daughter, she's going to get married, have kids. And a funny story, we were at a buffet and we were sitting there. I went up to get my food, came back, and my wife's like, hey, Calista just told us she's gay. Told me she's gay at a hometown buffet, just out there. The reason I tell this story is because it's kind of touching to me, because when she told me, she saw something in me that she thought I was disappointed. And a lot of times when I tell this story, I get emotional because I was the farthest from disappointed. In my mind, I had this image, right, of who she was. She had just been dating a boy. And then she comes out and says this. So to me, it was just processing that in the moment. You know, you come back with a plate full of food and this is what she tells you, you know. So for me, I was more hurt that she thought I was disappointed.
Mm.
And again, I do get emotional telling it because I wasn't disappointed at all in that. In my mind, I had to picture what life would be like in the future. You know, if she did happen to be with another female or whatever, you know, it was like, to me, she thought I was disappointed in that moment and I wasn't. And so that's what hurts me, is that my daughter thought I was disappointed with her, which I was not at all. So I guess fast forward, now she's with, you know, Sean, and it's just a great, you know, we have great times. We just got back from vacation, you know, and so it's just, I didn't want her to ever feel a certain way, and we have a great relationship regardless. But in that moment, it just hurts me that she felt that I felt a certain way, which I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think what's so powerful about that is that in a moment that you were processing everything, your reaction was not a reaction about the information. It was a reaction of processing. And obviously, when, as someone who did come out, I was very nervous about the reaction, not necessarily in the moment, but just what was the reaction going to be. And I can so see in that moment the processing time feeling like it was the reaction. And I think it's so beautiful that you are talking about this story and wanting to share, I'm sure then, but also now, that it was not about her. It was just processing a shift, and that you want your daughter to be happy and be in love with whomever she loves. And it was just a shift from you had a boyfriend to a different conversation, but you just want her to be happy. And that's, I think, what anyone who is coming out as their authentic self for anything wants is the acceptance. And so it is a very touching story and beautiful.
I guess thinking back, she probably, you know, like you just mentioned, you know, coming out to your parents at some point. Hers was probably just in the moment, like, I'm just going to do it right now. You know, she was probably nervous, you know, and then you know, that whole dynamic right there in that moment was probably like, she's probably wondering how we were going to react. The moment is what it is, you know, and she totally understands now at this point that how my reaction was and why my reaction was what it was.
I love that that is the motivating factor in doing Drag Race. I think in even you telling the story of, you know, knowing someone who reached out to you to apply and you're like, yeah, I'll apply. Like, there wasn't even a second hesitation. So you get the call, you're on the show, you show up. What was that like?
Since I did watch the show prior, walking into that room was pretty cool. You know, just that moment of seeing the workroom, and then you just kind of walk in, and it goes kind of fast yet slow at the same time because I'm nervous. I'm on camera for the first time. RuPaul's standing there, you know, 6 foot, whatever, you know, with 8-inch platforms. And RuPaul's actually super about the business. We didn't get a chance to interact too much other than on the show, but it was a great experience. Just being able to be a part of this show, which is worldwide, was just an incredible experience.
The genre of this makeover challenge was a group of firefighters. When you think about that from the perspective of taking a group of firefighters and making them over into drag, what was your perception of why they may have chosen that grouping? They've done army vets in the past. They've done crew from the show. How did it feel to sort of have it be a group of firefighters?
I think going back to what I mentioned earlier, you know, you have these conversations at fire stations, and you know, the history of firefighting is it's men, right? It's manly men that fight fires, that go into buildings, that are heroes, quote unquote, that just do this. And so, like, to do something that would be, if you take 50 years ago and think of the dynamic of firefighters to now, obviously there's a different shift in everything. We have actually Toledo has our first female chief of the fire department.
Love that.
Yeah, so now you go to like this, and you go fast forward 50 years, you know, from then, and you're like, okay, male firefighter, a straight male firefighter with a wife and kids, you know, going to do this show. So to me, it was like, hey, let's open up these conversations. This goes into a lot more, obviously, politically, you know, where the climate is around the world and how people perceive drag queens and, you know, how negative it is. And so that was another reason I keep saying that I wanted to go, because I did want to open up these conversations at the fire station. So going into it, it was like I was down for whatever. Like I like having fun. I'm like, hey, if you want to put me in big boobs and big ass and big everything, do it. Let's, if you want to put me in a big wig, I'm down for it. So on the show, I even think I said when I watched the shows, like I'm more the pageant queen, right? So I love that like over the top big hair and big wigs and
Yep.
big makeup. So that's what they did. Luckily I got with Roxy Andrews, who's big on that anyway. So I guess the bond we had was a lot of fun. I mean, it just seemed just seamless. We went to the table because we had to write a little
The lyrics.
lyrics. We had to write some lyrics to the songs. We had to choreograph. They made me feel like I was killing it out there on the dance floor, by the way. And
You
when
did
I
kill
watch
it.
it, I was not killing it.
No, you killed it.
Felt like I moved way better when I watched it later, but it is what it is. But it was still fun. So
You absolutely crushed it. And I think what was so beautiful about sort of you being with Roxy and with Vanessa is that they have both talked about and talked about on the episode about sort of not having that father figure. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation that may not make it to air on the show, but what was it like to talk to them when you were telling them your story and understanding more of their story in comparison?
from my end, it made me feel obviously not their stories, but it made me feel good to know that they did have this kind of connection towards me, I guess, in a way, that
Mm-hmm.
they felt super comfortable around me as a male figure that maybe they didn't have in their life that they could talk to. I mean, I'm sure at this point they can talk to many people, but I think it made that transition for us to be able to just gel from the very beginning. It was great. I mean, when we left, gave hugs, and especially Vanessa, like my fifth child right now. So, but it's been great. We were actually in LA. I tried reaching out to her because she was in LA at the same time. Didn't work out, but we were trying to like just get together for lunch or something. I think it just made me feel good that, like, I guess in a selfish way that, I know a lot of people, even and like you said in your story, don't have that. And so, like, to be able to be that person for somebody that might not have that, to me, is important. I think having these things, that doing this, hopefully people can feel in some way comfortable coming to me, maybe if they have any questions or they want to just confide in me somehow or just bring out something. I hope I can be that person for someone, just to be a release for them, an escape for them to be able to talk and openly talk about it and know that they're not going to get judged from me. They're not going to get ridiculed from me. They know that I truly am an ally to whoever wants to come to me and talk to me about it. That aspect of it I did love.
It's very sweet. I think on the show, Vanessa even says it. She's like, have 5 kids and 6 with Roxy. Like, I asked because that's not normally how the conversation goes. And I think there was something, even if it was just for that moment, I think there's a lot of times where we think that someone has to be in our life for a really extended period of time to make an impact. And you could almost tell that there was some impact made and comfort level achieved within the show because it was so sweet to see someone say that. It was very natural, or at least that's how it appeared, and it's so wonderful to hear that that was your experience with it as well, because I think it's so touching just to see as a model of what can be is often healing in a way, even if we didn't have it, to know that it's out there and that someone else isn't necessarily experiencing what we may have experienced.
Well, and kudos to them too, because I was walking into their world and they made me feel extremely comfortable, doing everything we did. It was a great time, the whole thing. I felt so comfortable doing the dances. I felt comfortable putting the heels on. I just felt comfortable doing everything. It made me feel comfortable even putting the makeup on. So I'm so glad that I did it.
It was so great. And it's great to hear that you were glad that you did it, because you walked in and you're like, we are going to be Destiny's Child. And if I were to go in, that's what I would have said too. I'm like, let's make it work. And I think that it's so interesting to hear you talk about how comfortable they made you, because you're putting on hair, makeup, outfit, you're dancing, you're singing. Those are not easy things to do, period, if you've never done them before.
Mm-mm.
And here you are doing all of them at once. So you're on the show, you're getting done in hair and makeup, and there's one other aspect of doing drag that a man has to go through, which is the tuck. Did you commit to the full tuck?
So I actually did. And there's a funny story about it. Not necessarily the full tuck, but the full tuck, if you don't know what it is, not you personally, but anyone else, look it up. I will spare you the details.
I was going to say, we're trying to keep the show PG-13.
On top of the tuck, then I had to put a pair of tights on, a second pair of tights, a third pair of tights. I had to put on my fake bottom, another pair of tights. I had to put on my, what do you call it? Leotard, whatever. And then fishnets. So I had this all on, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I mean, literally, I'm not even kidding. With these shows, how they are, you know, that you go in and you do your dance, and they're like, okay, we're going to deliberate. Now come out and do the catwalk. At this point, I had to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, I can't go to the bathroom because I can't take all this off. If I take it all off, like, I had to put it all back on. And it was a lot of stuff. So I'm like, I cannot do this. So I'm like, I can just hold it. So then we do the dance, our dance, and then we come out and we stand in front of the judges. And I had to take off my heels at one point because they were just throbbing. So I took off my heels, and then they're like, "Okay, let's go do the final deliberations. You guys can go to the back room and wait again." Probably another hour goes by. I gotta wait. So then we go out. Then they do the judging of the 4 groups of just the drag queens, and then they come back, and then we do Untucked.
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember half the conversations because I was just like, I just have to go to the bathroom, but I can't go to the bathroom because I had to wait for all the recordings. And then finally they, come out and we do the final dance after Vanjie and Roxy did their, lip sync challenge. And then finally I could go to the bathroom, but it was probably literally 5 hours that I had to go to the bathroom. And it was so excruciating pain. I was like, this is crazy, but I suck it up.
No, I mean, it's incredible that you stuck it out, but I have watched the show so many times. And I think my brain thinks through like production and how things work and all of these things. And I don't think I ever thought once, oh, like what if they have to go to the bathroom mid filming and they're tucked? So kudos to you for doing all of that. Heels, the hair, the makeup, and having to pee the whole time. What did you leave the show thinking and feeling?
The whole reason for doing that show on top of the many other reasons I had was just to get a perspective from someone else's life, right? I can't even think of who sings it, but there's a great song about that. Like, you cannot judge someone else's life until you've lived their life. You know what I mean? And so, like, this person in the song, they're literally reincarnated to every single person that ever lived, that ever was, right? So they can understand, but you cannot know until you've lived that life. Mm-hmm. I'm not living that life, but to be a part of it, to be a piece of it, to see it, you gain an appreciation for it. It's so much hard work. I mean, it's hours and hours, and I mean, they dedicate so much time to it, and they're so committed to it. So being able to see that side of it, trying to get a little perspective of someone else's life, again, going back to the stories of their lives, that's what I took out of it. I think is just helping me to judge even less, right, of people, because a little bit more about somebody and why they are how they are. And even Roxy told me that drag is a persona, right? They're able to say things that they don't normally say while they're in drag, that they're like, I would never say that when I wasn't in drag, but it allows me to just be free. And it is a form of entertainment.
And here you thought you were running into burning buildings with all the heat and pressure of that. And all you had to do is go on RuPaul's Drag Race to get a whole different level of being put into the fire.
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely was.
Since the episode, have you been recognized, out and about?
So it's funny you ask, because we just had a vacation. We went to Yosemite and Sequoia, and then went to LA. And when I was in LA, it's very random. We went to an ice cream place, and I had to take my son to the bathroom, so I left. And my daughter and her husband and my wife and kids, they were all in there for probably 10 minutes. So I come back, go to get my ice cream, and the guy behind the counter kind of just smiles, gives me my ice cream. So then we walk over to the cash register, and he's like, "Hey, great job winning that challenge." And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what? And he goes, RuPaul's drag show. He's like, I'm like, no. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, you're kidding. I'm like, they put you up this. And I look over to all my family. I'm like, they put you up this. I'm like, there's no way. And he's like, no. He's like, I'm serious. He's like, I watch every episode. He's like, I knew it was you when you came in. And blah, blah. I'm like, no way. Like, my face is probably beet red. I'm like, I cannot believe this right now that you recognize me. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I loved it. He's like, you did a great job. And so we went, and then, they didn't say anything. I've questioned them about 5 times after that. Like, I promise we did not say a word. And so he was just a fan. And to me, it's like, it's funny because even if, I saw someone out that I thought I might know, I wouldn't be that confident, but he was so confident. He knew exactly who I was. And so we got a picture together, and, it was just a good time. So a great moment
Mm.
of my getting recognized in LA.
So you have this persona, Valerie Valentine, but where did Valerie Valentine come from?
So funny story is, I chose the name Valerie Valentine because my grandma's name is Valerie. If she would have watched the show, which is not with us today, she would have loved it. She would have laughed. She would have been my supporter in this. You know what I mean? And then Valentine, the street I grew up on. So Valerie Valentine was my name.
I love that. And if I ever were to be on a makeover challenge at RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm sure that my grandmother Dorothy would be proud. And I love that connection. You had mentioned that growing up that you were a Jehovah's Witness and talking about how much your grandmother would have loved it. When it aired several months later, what was the reaction from your family?
There's a weird dynamic there because my mom and dad and brothers and sisters, they're still Jehovah's Witnesses, but they still will have conversations with me, even though I've left the religion. And so that kind of becomes very tumultuous at times. As far as the show went, I think they all were okay watching it. But it kind of goes back to whenever Sean and Callie got married, my mom, because of her convictions with the religion, she couldn't allow herself to go to the wedding, which we had in our backyard. It was a beautiful wedding. It was kind of during COVID time. And so, like, those little things, and again, earlier I said be unapologetically you. And to me, unconditional love is important. And I feel like as much as my mom does love me, I don't doubt she loves me and she would do anything, but there is a conditional love because of the religious aspect of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that does get in the way. But it really hasn't been a huge topic of conversation. I mean, they did ask how my time went, things like that. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I think they appreciated that I did it. I mean, they know me, they know how I am, and I think they appreciated the fact that I was able to do it and put myself out there.
It's interesting because in one sort of aspect, seeing their son in drag can be very difficult. And another aspect of what you talked about is her not being at your daughter and her granddaughter's wedding. Understanding that nothing's perfect in life and that there's always areas where there's friction or things that people are working through. What was that like for you to work through with Callie that your mom and her grandmother wasn't going to be at the wedding?
She had already seen the dynamics of our relationship, right? So sometimes she would do things, sometimes she wouldn't. She'd get more strict with the religion, she wouldn't. I know it definitely was kind of a shock to her that my mom didn't show up. And I know it still hurts her to this day that she didn't, because she wishes, again, that she would just love her and no matter what, and just, hey, let's, enjoy this day with me. It's a beautiful day. So, I mean, we've had these conversations over the years, but it does crush you in a way, right? It hurts
Yeah.
whenever your parent or whatever say, well, I can't hang out with you as much. I can't do many things with you because you're not living the life that I want. And I get you understand this, you know what I mean? And so it's like, as much as I know they do love me and they want it to come from a good place, from the opposite end, you want to just be like, but I don't understand. I don't understand how
Yeah.
you can't just love me unconditionally and I'm your son. And so it does hurt. And the same with Callie, she feels the same way. It's like, I'm your granddaughter. Like, you can't just do it. Like, I mean, is that really true love? Again, I just keep going back to like the unconditional love part. It's like there
Mhm.
is a conditional love. Like, I love my kids unconditionally. I mean, obviously there's going to be things where, okay, you're putting yourself in danger. I'm not going to allow that. But this is not those things. To me, this is not
Yeah.
those things, right? I know it hurts, and we have conversations about it all the time. But
Everyone's lived experience is different. And so, what your lived experience is, no matter how big or small it may feel, it's your lived experience and it can be painful. And I think for you as a parent, there's sort of two aspects to it that, almost feels doubly as hard, right? There's the relationship with your own parents, and then there's the relationship of you and your daughter. And with you and your parents, as you said, there's sort of this I don't understand why, and wanting to just say like you you love me, like I don't understand why there's this condition on this. And at
mhm.
the same time, as a parent, I can only imagine almost the opposite of that where it's like you want to go into protection mode to protect her so that
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't feel what you're feeling with, well, there's a condition, like it only goes so far. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that you are so passionate, not just for your own family, but for your own lived experience to have done it, but also to help open up that conversation, I think is so important, because the more people do that, the more people put on those 8-inch heels and step out into someone else's shoes, the more understanding we all have.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned earlier, not just your family, but being a firefighter. When this aired, what were the conversations like with your fellow firefighters?
Like you mentioned earlier, there were so many months that went by when I recorded it to when I came back. And there were a few that I kind of, hey, this is what I did when I left, and so they kind of had an idea. But then it's like, how is the department going to perceive it? Because you got some that are very, like I said, they're very macho firefighters. Oh, that stuff, they would never do that stuff. It was a big part. I did the show was like, hey, we're going to have these conversations at the dinner table, whatever. It's going to happen. So I'm going to do it to open up these conversations about it. When we got back, it was going to air. So it fell on a day that I was actually working. So they all wanted to watch it. So we put it on at the fire station. We watched it. There was definitely some razzing and stuff like that, them kind of teasing, rightfully so. I think, it's me in a wig and makeup and, big boobs and all that stuff. So
I'm surprised they recognized you once you became Valerie
I
Valentine.
know, well, maybe it was a little hard for them. I don't know. I had to point it out. But, honestly, since then, we've had some great conversations. I mean, it opens up conversations about many things, right? That you want to lead into, that you want to, people might have preconceived ideas of what this is or who this is or why they do what they do in negative ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you want to like bring out, Roxy and Vanjie and Plastique and Georges and, all of them were just, it was so great. I mean, when we were in that room, you could just feel the love, and
Mm-hmm.
again, we gave hugs when we left. I gave hugs to the ones that weren't even my drag mothers or whatever, So we all had this bond, and you got to tell those experiences of what you hear on certain news medias, politically, how they're trying to, do certain things to different groups is not how it is. This is the reality of it. And until you
Mm-hmm.
can open yourself up to that, or until you can choose for yourself to understand these, which is not an easy thing for people to do, right? When you have certain ideas in your mind or you're raised a certain way, it's not easy to open that up and just be like, oh, well, I didn't think about it that way. And again, from my side too,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I'm like, it's hard for me to think the other way. And a lot of times I don't want to, because to me, that's not the love way, right? To like accept
Mm-hmm.
people. So I don't want to go that way, but it's hard for me to even think and shut that off. But
Yeah.
it's the same for the other way, right? They don't want to go the other way. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it has opened up great conversations, which was one of my points of going on the show. And to, hey,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to do this, we're going to talk about it. We're going to do it. We're going to have fun with it. And it's been actually a great conversation starter. Nothing has really negative come out of it, as far as anybody saying anything too abrupt or anything, which we'd have conversations with that too, but we haven't had to. So honestly, I was pleasantly surprised by the reaction that all the firefighters at my station especially have had towards it. So it was fun.
What you said is so important. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes and experiencing it for yourself, and taking it a level further and being open to talking about it and sharing your experience opens the door for those conversations and for people to just have a peek into it, right? What was that like? Hearing your version of it, someone that they know, hearing the positive experience and how much love there was. I am 100% positive you don't run into burning buildings all day with people that you hate. There is a bond, there is a family in that fire department. And there's a bond and there's a family in those seasons of Drag Race. They spend a lot of time together. They're talking about personal things. And so it's almost like you're sharing that, yeah, we do this in the fire department, but also it was the same experience here. Instead of putting on, a firefighting suit, I put on a dress and heels and a wig and lots of makeup.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the idea goes back to unconditional love and understanding. And I think that's such an incredible message.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back at the episode, it's amazing to participate. What was it like to have your queens win?
It is funny because it's like, I'm competitive, right? And I do want to win. but I felt like we should have won it anyway when I was on the show. It was like, I think our group did great. I think we looked great. I think they worked hard putting everything together. So for them to win, and obviously I think it was Vanjie's first win ever. So it was important for me to try to get them to that point and try to do the best I could. And so, the whole time it's funny because I'm back at, in heels off the set and trying to walk and watching videos on how to walk in heels. And so I'm trying to win. Right. And so that was definitely a sticking point for me. It was like, hey, we got to win this. And, who knows what the judges were going to, deliberate, I guess, if you want to say at the end. And at the end, it wouldn't have mattered. I still would have enjoyed my time there. But the win was like the icing on the cake. So it was nice.
I love that.
And at one point, it was funny because Nate was a go-go dancer at one point, and they cut this out. But I said, no way I'm losing to a go-go dancer. and he heard me over there, and he was like laughing, but that got cut out. But it was kind of funny.
I think what the challenge is really about is them making you feel comfortable enough to go out on stage and do it. And if you don't have, lip syncing experience, hair, makeup, walking in heels, dancing, like that is a challenge in itself. And you did fantastic. And they also play with the fact that that's not your daytime profession, right? One of my favorite moments is when I think you do like almost like a back bend and they like dip you back, but they're like holding you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the piece of that is everyone enters that with a different level of raw talent, if you will. But I think that level of being comfortable and what they were able to do for you to make you feel comfortable, and also vice versa with sort of sharing your story, I think that's what makes it so good. It's the whole package. It's not just, can you walk in heels? Can you do the splits?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they did miss an opportunity to have you slide down a stripper pole because in a firehouse, I assume
they were there right
once.
next to us. Yeah.
They just didn't let you on it. They were worried with the heels.
Right.
From this whole experience, what acceptance of your family, putting yourself in these shoes, what message do you want to leave people with today?
I think I did state it earlier already. And it's just kind of like what I want people to feel. When I have these conversations with people, I purposely have conversations with people because not even just about this, not even just about the LGBTQ community, not about that, but many things that are kind of important conversations to have. And I feel like if I have these conversations, I want people to know, no matter if they agree with me or not, I know that they know I'm a genuine person. I know that they know they can come to me and they can trust me because I have these certain beliefs. And I feel like I do try to stick up for people, but it is in a genuine way. It's about unconditional love, right? And having that unconditional love and letting people know that, hey, we're all in this together. Like, if you can find any comfort in me, please come to me. And so that's my thing, is not even for me, but for everyone else to have unconditional love. It's like, because when there's conditions on love, people feel a certain way, and then they feel like they're not loved as much as they should be. And so that's my thing, is just unconditional love. And my kids know that, and be unapologetically you, right? So be who you are and let everyone else fall where they may.
I love that. I love that. My final question that I ask everyone, when you think back, what is something that someone has told you that has impacted your life and you'll never forget?
I don't know if this is an impact on life. I guess it is. But a quote that I love is, whether good times or bad times, right? This too shall pass. So this too shall pass is one of my favorite quotes, because there's a lot of things that a lot of people are going through in life, and they got to understand that around the corner, if they keep living their lives, this too shall pass. Again, in a bad way, it's going to pass, but also don't get too high on yourself either, because guess what? This too shall pass. So you always got to have that fine line of just living your life as best you can, and understand there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times, but just this too shall pass. So live your life unapologetically.
I love that. What a great place to end. And again, congratulations on the win, because there are not many people that can say they won a challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race. So amazing, amazing job. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I appreciate you reaching out. Thank you.